So, here are three really great reasons that you and I should spend some time outside and in nature. The first one is doing so reduces stress levels. Research from many different places suggests that spending time in nature in many different forms can reduce the presence of cortisol in our bodies and the impact of a stressful life. And let's not get it twisted. Stress is an important part of human life. We need stress to remind us of deadlines, to remind us that there needs to be urgency in different situations, especially if you're actually in danger. But constantly being exposed to stress from school, from work, from the political situation, from the economic situation, from interpersonal situations in your family, just stress all over. Constant exposure can really impact your mind. It can help you develop anxiety or lead you to depression or other things that put you in a state that isn't just like, I'm having a moment of stress, but something deep. And, research suggests that when you spend time, for instance, at a park or in a garden or in a general green space or even at the beach or in a forest, like many different natural settings, you can reduce the impact of stress. You're not going to eliminate it. Like, stress is going to be part of our lives. And some people lead more stressful lives because they have more responsibilities or things out of their control. But spending time outside, spending time connecting to greenery, to animals, to bodies of water can really reduce that stress because it helps you connect to something outside of your sources of stress. Which leads me to my second reason that you and I should spend time outside, which is doing so changes our perspective. So when you spend all this time on this screen, whether it's the screen you're watching this video on or another screen, your video games, your laptop, your computer, your PC, whatever, you're there. You're in that digital world. We're in this digital world. And at least for me, and maybe for you, spending all that time there can make you forget that there's an entire world out here. I mean, really, like, just peep the world. Look at the world. There's a whole world out there. So, when you step outside of the screens and you step outside of the rooms in which you're watching your screens, you can realize that the world is bigger than the problems that you're scrolling through. One of the challenges I've faced throughout my years, I'm 23, is like just spending way too much time on Instagram. I started using Instagram in May of 2013 in 5th grade, and after all these years, I still struggle to balance my use of it, and I like just get caught in these like traps of like, oh, I'm just gonna check what my friends are doing, and then I check what a couple of my friends are doing, and that's a 15-minute chore, and then I find that I've lost 10 hours of time. And I think, oh my God, like this is the only thing that matters, like this feed. And then I realize I put my phone down and I step outside and I'm like, oh my gosh, this tree is pretty dope. The wind is pretty dope too. The birds sing, the ants crawl, the worms do their little thing. And that moment in nature, in its many different forms, helps change my perspective away from whatever I was focusing on. And even if it's a momentary change in perspective, I need that. And we need that as human beings. We can't just focus on one thing all the time, especially if it's negativity. And trust me, there is an abundance of negativity, and that impacts our mental health. It makes us obsess and get anxious and fearful and retreat away from one another when we really need to connect. And spending time in nature, at a park, at a beach, at a garden, helps us reconnect and helps change our perspective. Lastly, a third reason for just spending time outside and in nature is it can help us cope with mental illness. So I'm not just talking about acute moments of stress or fear, but I'm talking about those of us that struggle with things like anxiety or depression or PTSD or any number of issues that kind of drag on. So again, research does suggest and has indicated that nature-based therapy and nature interaction can actually reduce the symptoms of things like PTSD, anxiety, and depression. For each of the things I've mentioned, I'm going to include sources that you can read for yourself, so you don't just believe the guy in the pink shirt, you know? But yeah, like, mental illness is deeply common, and right now I mean, I'm not going to self-diagnose, but I'm in a good place, so I'm not actively dealing with something like anxiety or depression. But in times where I've had really depressive moments, you know, months where I had just persistent sadness and moving and things were hard, some of my most important moments of healing came in nature. I remember that, you know, it's 2025. So 3 years ago, at the end of my sophomore year here at Georgetown, I say here at Georgetown because I'm here right now visiting. I had a really tough time. I had a really, really tough time. And I ended the semester in a place of just being kind of lost. I'm a generally optimistic person, a generally up, you know, goofy kind of guy. And I had ended that semester in a bad place. And I had made good friendships and I had good relationships with my professors, but my time at that point in time in university left me nearly depressed. I mean, from the perspective of my parents, they were like, bro, you look depressed. My dad even told me, you look like you're carrying something. Like, you physically, your body looks like you're carrying something. And it felt like I was carrying something. And even I had colleagues who I visited over the summer who were like, you look like something's changed in your eyes. And it took the better part of the second half of 2022 to not be carrying as much. And a big part of not carrying all that, you know, call it depression, call it a down period, call it a rut, was interning at a farm and doing work at a farm that I worked at the summer before. And I spent a lot of time there, and I met people and was helping run a program there, and that interaction, that social interaction, was really important. But time literally with my hands in some soil, looking at bugs and birds and snakes and vegetables and flowers and all those things, time doing that truly, truly, genuinely healed me. Yeah. On my last day at the farm that year in 2022, before I went back to Miami, Florida, where I'm from, I wrote a poem, and I'll include that poem because it reflects how I feel. It reflects the fact that nature truly does have a healing presence. I don't want to speak for you, but maybe this resonates with you. I find that this world that we've created with air conditioning and cars and a magic brick that lets you talk to or watch some dude in a random place instantaneously at any point in time, and a supercomputer. Like, this world has a lot of incredible benefits, but it can also disconnect us from ourselves and maybe put us in deep mental illness spaces. And time in nature can help us get out of those kinds of spaces. And so, you know, for the 3 reasons that I mentioned, be it, you know, reducing your stress levels, changing your perspective, and or coping with mental illness, getting outside and spending time in nature is so dang important. Now that I mentioned 3 really great reasons that spending time outside in nature can help you and me improve our mental health, let me tell you how, right? So how can you do that? I mentioned that you can spend time in different places because nature isn't just one thing. It isn't just a wilderness. You don't need to go to like Alaska or Colorado or some tropical island paradise to experience nature. You really can go somewhere as small as a tree. If there's a tree that you like, big or small, spending some time underneath that tree can really help you out, believe it or not. If it's not a tree, then if you're like me, you live near the coast, go to the beach. If you can find an hour and a half to like drive, spend some time at the beach and then leave, that's great. Exercise that privilege. Not everybody lives near a body of water, but it doesn't need to be a beach. It could be a lake, it could be a river, it could be a pond, whatever. And if it's not the beach, then try going to a park. Parks are typically free. And if you can spend time going on a walking trail or maybe sitting on a bench and just chilling at a park, I would suggest that. It's a good idea. So, we've got underneath the tree, we've got a beach, we've got the park. You can volunteer at a garden. I'm gonna always talk about the transformative role that gardens have in our world. And people have big, small gardens or big gardens, or you may even want to visit a farm, but interacting with aspects of nature like plants and insects and birds in that way can really take your mind off of whatever's causing you to be in a bad place, So try going to a different place. Aside from changing locations, another important aspect of going outside and spending time in nature is being mindful, right? Being intentional and being mindful. So when you step out, try to pay attention to the different elements around you. If you're at the beach, pay attention to how the sand feels beneath your feet. Are the grains like really small and smooth, or are they like big and chunky and kind of rugged? What's the temperature of the sand? Does it feel warm underneath your feet, or is it kind of cold, or maybe different kind of temperature, right? Can you smell the saltiness of the sea or ocean in the breeze, or do you got to get like up close and personal to really feel and smell the saltiness? What about the water, right? What does the water look like? What's the color? If you're dipping your toes or if you're swimming, like what does that feel like? What words would you use? Ask yourself those kinds of questions. And I'll include some reflection questions that you can use while you're in, any natural setting so that you can be a bit more mindful, right? You can apply those to another setting, be it a forest, or if you live in a really dry place like a desert. There's a way to approach your interaction as a human with nature that can unlock the mental health benefits of interaction with nature. So be mindful. And the third thing I'm gonna share, because I like doing things in threes, is put your phone down. If you're gonna be going outside and you're gonna go spend some time in nature or in a yard or whatever, consider putting your phone down. Consider closing your laptop. Consider turning off your notifications. Consider not bringing your headset if you're a gamer, outside. And if it's just for 5 minutes, right? Because we all have different demands. Some of us need to be on call because we have responsibilities with family or work. But if you can find 5 minutes or 10 minutes, ideally more, but just a small amount of time to turn off these devices, then do it. Because what that will enable you to do is to turn off one of the channels that are just making all this noise, all this sound and all this information and all these different people that you've never met coming into your inboxes and your text messages and your phone calls. And it's hard to focus on the leaves and the trees and the birds and the bees when all you're hearing is signals and chatter. So consider turning off your phone. So to review, the 3 things I would suggest for how to interact best with nature and when you're outside is choose a setting. We went over a few, be it a park, a garden, farm, beach, the desert, a forest. Choose a setting. Second, be mindful, be intentional. Consider and reflect on the different things around you. Like, what is the texture? What is the smell? What are the sights? What words can you apply to the things around you? What are the colors? What does it taste? What does the air taste like if you're trying to get a little experimental? And then third, put your phone down. Like, there's a meme. It's like, it's always that dang phone. Low key, my mom was right. It is my phone. part of the issue why things don't always get done in the way they're supposed to is the phone. So put the phone down. Yeah, that's it. This was my reminder. This was my friendly reminder, and I'm hoping that this reaches somebody. And no matter what you're going through, no matter the challenges, no matter what your mind is telling you when it comes to negativity or pain or deep, dark places, know that there is a way out. A way out that means seeing another day, that means that you're not alone. That means things get better. So I hope you're doing well. Hope you're the best. Yeah.